Hollywood's golden era promised us endless elegance, sparkling jewels, radiant smiles, and fairy tale romances, with guaranteed happy endings. Yet lurking beneath the studio lights and rehearsed press conferences existed an entirely different reality. A universe of hushed controversies, illicit romances, and manipulation tactics capable of obliterating careers. These weren't merely ingenues performing virtuous characters on screen. They were females who shattered every expectation placed upon them. They captivated leading men, stole spouses, and mocked conventional morality during a period consumed with maintaining facades. Some pursued passion for genuine affection, others sought vengeance, and certain ones simply acted on impulse. Today, we're exploring the concealed liaisons and astonishing romantic histories of the golden era's most notorious leading ladies, the women who transformed desire into influence and controversy into celebrity. Let's start with the woman whose magnetic appeal defined an entire generation, only to watch that same allure destroy her. Number 1. Clara Bow. Long before Marilyn Monroe, long before Elizabeth Taylor graced magazine covers, there existed Clara Bow, the original It Girl. She possessed that undeniable combination of vulnerability and seduction, the sort of charisma that captivated audiences regardless of gender. But during the Roaring Twenties, such uninhibited spirit carried consequences. Clara's ascent was lightning fast. Rising from destitution in Brooklyn to dominating Hollywood's silent cinema, she embodied a revolutionary feminine ideal, spontaneous, flirtatious, and unapologetic about her sensuality. Yet the identical authenticity that elevated her to stardom simultaneously painted a target on her back. The gossip columns labeled her untamed, studio executives murmured about her questionable virtue, and every acquaintance she cultivated became fodder for speculation. Whispers connected her romantically to matinee idols like Gary Cooper, alongside numerous filmmakers, though the majority of these controversies were inflated or completely fabricated. Truthfully, Clara was simply a youthful woman seeking genuine connection within an industry constructed on fantasy. But the entertainment world showed no mercy toward women displaying humanity. The strain shattered her. Nervous exhaustion, fatigue, and widespread humiliation drove her into premature retirement before reaching 30. Nevertheless, even following her vanishing act from cinema, her mythology expanded. Clara Bow wasn't demolished by controversy. She became synonymous with it. That embracing authenticity within a system desperate to manipulate you represented the ultimate act of defiance. But if Clara embodied Hollywood's wounded darling, our next performer was its absolute provocateur, a woman who didn't merely challenge conventions but ridiculed them openly. Number 2. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead wasn't simply a Hollywood nonconformist. She was a one-woman controversy generator. Armed with her throaty vocals, razor-sharp intellect, and biting humor, she didn't merely violate standards, she mocked them mercilessly. Raised within Southern aristocracy, Tallulah could have embodied the refined debutante. Instead, she crowned herself empress of outrageous conduct. She consumed alcohol excessively, spoke provocatively, and existed even more provocatively. Her soirees achieved mythical status, her vocabulary shocked polite society, and her romantic conquests stretched credibility. She reportedly boasted of entertaining more than 500 paramours. When questioned about the accuracy, she merely grinned. Who keeps track? Gender proved irrelevant. Tallulah operated under her personal code decades before Hollywood dared acknowledge bisexuality. Her impulsive marriages proved equally outlandish. She wed performer John Emery primarily because, as she explained, he resembled John Barrymore, which satisfied my requirements. Her criteria were whimsical, yet audacious. She famously declared she'd never share a bed with any gentleman unless he possessed Barrymore's physique. But beneath the clever quips and controversies existed a woman fearless about authenticity. Within a society fixated on management and image, Tallulah Bankhead remained a tempest that rejected containment, and while she occupied herself shocking polite society with her audacity, another performer was embodying passion so intensely that her story blended romance, envy, and heartbreak, leaving behind one of classic Hollywood's most haunting myths. Number 3. Lupe Velez. Lupe Velez wasn't merely passionate. She was a hurricane disguised in satin and rouge. Nicknamed the Mexican Spitfire, she was stunning, volatile, and utterly captivating. During the 1930s, when Hollywood insisted its leading ladies remain poised and compliant, Lupe was boisterous, defiant, and magnificently uninhibited. She transformed every space into a spectacle. Journalists cherished her acidic remarks, audiences adored her intensity, and paramours dreaded her jealous rages. Her most celebrated romance involved Gary Cooper, America's quintessential leading man. Their attraction proved magnetic. Lupe's possessiveness became infamous. She once confronted Cooper publicly, accusing him of infidelity. Some alleged she even humiliated him at a gathering by unfastening his trousers to investigate for another woman's fragrance. The tabloids devoured it, and Hollywood remained transfixed. But beneath those explosive headlines existed a woman profoundly devoted and aching for comprehension. When Cooper departed, she was devastated, and speculation circulated that she ended her existence from heartbreak. For generations, a macabre urban myth insisted Lupe perished, with her face submerged in a commode, a vicious fabrication that eclipsed her genuine legacy. Actually, she was discovered serenely upon her bed. Yet Hollywood favored the mythology because tragedy, apparently, represented the ultimate cost of being a woman who declined to conform. But not every leading lady's romantic escapades concluded sorrowfully. Some blazed so brilliantly that the entire globe couldn't avert its gaze. Number 4. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor transcended movie stardom. She personified Hollywood itself, possessing violet eyes, accumulating 8 marriages, and amassing more precious stones than royal treasuries. She revolutionized what dramatic existence truly meant. But underlying that splendor was a romantic history that made even scandal sheets gasp. Her most notorious liaison commenced when she became infatuated with vocalist and performer Eddie Fisher. There existed merely one complication. Fisher was wedded to Taylor's closest confidant, Debbie Reynolds. The treachery reverberated throughout America. Headlines shrieked, companionships dissolved, and Taylor received the homewrecker designation. But rather than retreating, she wed Fisher herself, demonstrating that within her universe, passion superseded allegiance. Naturally, that union proved temporary. Her affections and global fascination soon gravitated toward another gentleman, Richard Burton. Their magnetism during Cleopatra's production burned so intensely it nearly incinerated the soundstage. They married not once, but twice, and their partnership became a cyclone of devotion, extravagance, and public confrontations that Hollywood observed obsessively. Taylor expressed zero remorse. "I'm an extremely devoted spouse," she once quipped, "and rightfully so. I've accumulated considerable experience." She wasn't pursuing controversy. She was pursuing the variety of passion that blazed more intensely than any surrounding spotlight. And when the embers cooled, Taylor remained unbroken. Evidence that within Hollywood, even devastation could forge legendary status. But while Elizabeth's romantic entanglements dominated front pages, another performer understood that sometimes the most revolutionary act wasn't chasing fame. It was abandoning it entirely. Number 5. Louise Brooks. Louise Brooks defied everything Hollywood anticipated. With her geometric bob, penetrating stare, and rebellious intellect, she embodied the sophisticated contemporary female long before civilization recognized the concept. She refused to participate in their games. She invented her own. During the late 1920s, while fellow performers obeyed studio mandates, Brooks declined manipulation. She abandoned productions, rejected agreements, and conducted her existence precisely as she desired. Her candor regarding intimacy, celebrity, and authority rendered her hazardous to the establishment and irresistible to everyone else. She engaged in affairs with affluent gentlemen, filmmakers, and creative types, not seeking publicity, but pursuing desire. "I was never the neighboring sweetheart," she once reflected. "I was the woman you couldn't erase from memory." When studios attempted blacklisting her for her autonomy, she simply departed, selecting liberty over recognition. By her 30s, her cinematic career concluded, and she endured years approaching destitution. Yet even then, she declined conformity. She composed essays dissecting Hollywood's duplicity and evolved into a legendary figure for subsequent generations of females who recognized her true identity, a revolutionary draped in elegance. Louise Brooks required no controversy to remain memorable. Her complete existence constituted one. But while she departed from public attention willingly, our next performer crafted her entire identity around commanding it, through methods that scandalized even the most permissive observers. Number 6. Diana Dors. If Hollywood possessed Marilyn Monroe, Britain claimed Diana Dors, except Dors never bothered feigning innocence. With platinum ringlets, a mischievous smile, and an appetite for extravagance, she was the sort of female who didn't merely attract attention. She summoned pandemonium. She debuted as an adolescent starlet promoted as the English Marilyn, but instead of permitting studios to mold her into a wholesome ingenue, Dors constructed her reputation upon decadence. She hosted legendary house gatherings that achieved mythological status, overflowing champagne, celebrated attendees, and murmured speculation that recording devices lurked within the sleeping quarters. Certain sources alleged she even documented her paramours for amusement. The media branded her crude, religious authorities condemned her sinful, and one archbishop notoriously labeled her a wayward harlot. Dors remained unbothered. She embraced the notoriety, converting controversy into visibility. Behind the sensational coverage, however, she possessed shrewdness, a female who comprehended fame's mechanics. She recognized that during the 1950s, negative publicity didn't represent termination. It constituted complementary promotion. Every affair, every rumor, every provocative photograph expanded her recognition further. Her existence blended glamour with turbulence, and she savored every moment. But if Diana's controversies were meticulously orchestrated, Hollywood's subsequent siren played for maximum impact and developed connections that ventured into genuinely sinister territory. Number 7. Jayne Mansfield. Jayne Mansfield wasn't merely another blonde bombshell, she was a perpetual headline. With her childlike vocals, voluptuous silhouette, and persistent flirtation with photographers, she elevated seduction into theatrical performance. But underlying the coquettish grin was a female whose actual existence exceeded her filmography's wildness. During the 1950s, Jayne committed herself to eclipsing Marilyn Monroe, and temporarily she succeeded. She disrupted premieres wearing translucent garments, accidentally tumbled from evening wear before photographers, and guaranteed her identity appeared in publications weekly. Hollywood termed it marketing. Jayne termed it dominance. Her romantic history proved equally spectacular. She rotated through husbands, liaisons, and speculation, including whispered involvement with President John F. Kennedy. But what truly cemented her infamy was her association with Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan. Some alleged she was his paramour. Others believed she manipulated him for publicity. Acquaintances reported she would telephone him during late hours, speaking in hushed, teasing tones, while companions eavesdropped, stifling laughter. Whether authentic or merely additional theatrics, Jayne comprehended one principle better than anyone. Controversy generates revenue. Tragically, her narrative concluded suddenly in an automobile collision in 1967, preserving her eternally as the quintessential Hollywood temptress, the female who transformed seduction into her signature. But while Jayne toyed with peril, Our final subjects experienced existence unlike anyone else, and their pursuit of affection and independence. Number 8. Daisy and Violet Hilton. Daisy and Violet Hilton existed unlike anyone else within Hollywood, quite literally. Born physically connected at the pelvis, the siblings transformed their circumstance into performance, becoming vaudeville phenomena during the 1920s before transitioning to cinema. But beneath the applause and camera flashes lurked a narrative considerably grimmer. The twins endured perpetual exploitation. Their guardians and representatives accumulated fortunes while maintaining the sisters in near poverty. When they ultimately achieved liberation, Daisy and Violet resolved to exist precisely as they wished, including their romantic pursuits. They courted gentlemen, occasionally identical ones, and reportedly engaged in countless affairs. Among their initial relationships involved a married gentleman, a controversy that precipitated his divorce. Subsequently, Daisy attempted matrimony with musician Jack Lewis, but 21 American states declined marriage certification, asserting that wedding one twin signified wedding both. Still, the sisters persisted in bold living, pursuing affection and autonomy even as their celebrity diminished. When cameras ceased operating, they performed in taverns and traveling shows simply to subsist. They were discovered deceased together in their residence, still adjacent as they had been since birth. It represented a tragic conclusion, yet somehow poetically fitting. The Hilton sisters had conducted their complete lives according to personal principles, inseparable in both devotion and destiny. And as their story receded from headlines, Hollywood's golden era began dissolving. The golden era of Hollywood supposedly represented sophistication, elegance, and flawlessness. But beneath those impeccable smiles existed females who dared to demand more. They weren't angels. They weren't antagonists. They were complex, fervent, and far too courageous for the era they inhabited. Elizabeth Taylor, Tallulah Bankhead, Lupe Velez, they all participated in identical perilous contests, defying the expectations that instructed females to remain silent, obedient, and appreciative. And consequently, they suffered repercussions, ridiculed by tabloids, disciplined by studios, and commemorated more for their controversies than their artistry. Yet presently, those identical controversies render them eternal. These females didn't merely inhabit Hollywood, they molded it. Every liaison, every headline, every shattered convention nudged the industry incrementally toward authenticity. So perhaps they weren't infamous whatsoever. Perhaps they were simply females preceding their generation, unfiltered, shameless, and unafraid to love whomever they desired.